When it comes to rotary engines, Mazda's 2-rotor is probably by far the most iconic engine you know of. 2 rotors, 13B, beautiful. Mazda then went and took it a step further and made a production 3-rotor. So 3 of these lobes humming away, making some of the most beautiful sounds I've ever heard. Over time, people realized that they could start building their own, and that's when all those guys started making 4 rotors. I myself saw that happening and wanted to be in on that trend, but then took it a step further. This is currently the world's only 6-rotor E-shaft that is capable of being turbocharged, and this is where you think that the party stops. A friend of mine, Mucka Motorsports out in New Zealand, who has this running in an FD. Sounds absolutely beautiful, but what if I told you one crazy engineer built something even bigger? This was a twist I could not even imagine or create myself. The world's only 12-rotor. The man that created it, Tyson, is here to help give us a little bit of a history and future of what we're about to see. Oh my God.
Whoa.
This is genuinely the first time we've seen this in person.
That's huge.
Wow. It's like one of those myths you see online, but you never actually know that it's real. That's huge.
You know what else is crazy? First glance, the rotor housings, that's smaller than I thought they were.
Yeah, we tried to keep it as compact as we could, and we had to fit in a certain footprint, bigger than a single rotor.
Yeah.
But it's smaller than 3 together.
Intake and exhaust is kind of, impressively big, but the actual core motor
is small.
It's time to unload it and have Tyson walk us through what it is and how it got to be. This is the first time in the shop we've had to worry about the rating of the engine lift weight. Now that motor should be what, Tyson, 800? That fits right under a ton. We're probably gonna pull it back a little bit. You know how hard it is to stare at this and wait for the correct moment to start asking him questions? I'm trying, like, there's so many questions I have.
Yeah, once we get past, we can set it down.
To even have this in the shop is an honor. To be worthy of working on it is an honor. And so this wasn't like a long-term plan or a goal or a dream, but it just shit out all my long-term plans and goals and dreams.
On a big block or small block Chevy, that's about where the mounts are for a normal V8 Chevy engine. So that's why I put these there to have a mount place that would match. And this bolt pattern on the back, that is a big block Chevy bolt pattern. You want to put this in so you see where it goes?
Yeah. From rumors on the internet that this was a boat motor, but boats kind of have a history of sharing parts with cars, and this actually bolts up to a Chevy big block sort of chassis or carcass, I guess.
It is a running engine. It's been on a dyno.
The fact that it runs and it's not just a piece of
art.
Yes, it is incredible.
I always told people if I ever produced this thing, I wouldn't have to worry about warranty because I would tell them this is art. Put it in your living room as art, and if it blows up, that's not my fault. I didn't tell you to start it. And it is all 70-75 aluminum, and I know you kind of know what that is now.
Yeah.
By being a stronger, harder aluminum, you can polish it shinier. You can't get a softer material. You can't polish rubber.
Yeah.
So the harder something is, the more shiny you can make it. So one reason it does shine so much, and it's dirty right now, it's not been polished up, but you can polish this up as good as any mirror in your bathroom because it's harder than 6061.
That makes sense.
These are 6061, and you can see they are not near as shiny as that.
I can summarize this motor in one phrase. This is if somebody said in theory and somebody else misheard them and said in reality. Like everything, all this is in theory possible, but it actually in reality is. That just blows me away. So we're gonna get some beautiful pictures and everything and then just jump straight into it. But we're just gonna take a moment and appreciate what the hell is in front of us. I'm working with Factor now, but the best part is I've been a customer of theirs forever. They're supposed to send me a box of food as part of this relationship. It doesn't come till next week, so I'm actually using my real box from the order that Erica and I have. Factor's like a service where the meal's ready to go, you just heat it up. For this sort of garage life, that is incredible because if you're trying to be healthy, you do protein shakes, but it's the same meal over and over again, and it's not very filling. Whereas this, you get variety, but you also get good vegetables in a lot of the choices. A lot of them have chicken breast in them. They're a protein plus version. So this is chicken piccata, This is jalapeno lime cheddar chicken. And so you get these wild varieties of things. If you are a shop life person like myself, it's either this or fast food. And you know deep down in your heart the right answer here, because you are not going to have the time to make these meals. Delivered weekly, and they're always adding new items to the menu. I'm sure there's a number they want me to say of how many meals they have available each week, but there are so many I can't even remember. I just keep scrolling and you can sort them and find the type of flavor you're looking for. It's incredible the sort of convenience that this is for me. You take this, throw it in the microwave for 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. Okay. Look at that. The olive oil in there, the pesto, and green beans, the creamed spinach, along with all the protein inside of a piece of salmon. And this is very good salmon, by the way. You can go click on the link in the description or use the code ROB50 for 50% off of your order. That's about as much as I'm gonna be able to say before I get to eating. I made an April Fool's Day joke posting something this truly chaotic. Well, that was a previous picture I did Photoshop, but I realized 3 days later we could take the picture for real. Okay.
You gotta be on that side, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's hot.
Well, you can tell by the way the sun's already behind the clouds. We've been staring at this thing for quite a while, just appreciating before we do anything else. And so I wanted to give Tyson a moment to just share with the world, at least my little world, what this is and why you built it.
We were into speedboats, and most speedboats have big block chivies, and we had done about as much as you could do with a big block chivy. And if you bought the best parts and you were the best tuner, there's still parts that will break, like the valve springs. You're bending metal back and forth and they will break no matter what, no matter how good you build it. A rotary has no known true failure. Like the tip seals can wear out, stuff can wear out, but there's none that will just break for the fun of it, like a big block chivy has. And you can only get so much power out of a big block chivy for hours on end of wide open. So we started measuring a big block chivy and seeing how many rotors could we fit in that spot. And in the end, we came up with this design that is the exact shape of a big block chivy. And it's where your oil pan would be down there, your head's out here to the side. I put a big block chivy bolt pattern in the back. So I basically made it to replace my boat engine.
For the younger audience, this man basically one day woke up and chose absolute violence. It's that simple.
I think we did a pretty good job of, just making something that looks really good. Most people for a long time thought it was just a mock-up piece, but it is a running engine. It's been on a dyno and ran. When we first started this thing, I was sitting around my shop, and when I finally got it assembled, and I was gonna start it for the very first time, and we had no ignition system, but it was assembled and ready to run, and I was sick of people telling me that it's a mock-up not running. So I grabbed a paint gun that you would paint a car with and put gasoline in it, and I had my hand on the throttle body to open the blades, and I was springing the gun. It was actually the throttle body was on the back, and I was twisting the blade and pulling the trigger on the paint gun and had a guy spinning it and got it running.
How wild did that sound?
Well, I was standing right here. Flames coming out of this. So it was very loud.
Have you dynoed this thing at all or anything like that?
Oh yeah, so it's been on a dyno. We had a carburetor on it. At the time, there was no fuel injection computers and stuff that would run 24 injectors at different timings, 24 coils, all that stuff. I started out with 2 Jaguar V12 computers to run the ignition. The problem with the carburetor is it's power limiting. You can run that 4-rotor up to 8,000 RPM at 100 horsepower if you just barely touch the throttle and let it go. So we did run the thing up in the 9 or 10,000 RPM range, but it wasn't making a lot of power because we had no fuel and air for it. I think it was around 800 foot-pounds at 2,000 RPM. So naturally aspirated, it's really insane power. It was going to 17-to-1 air fuel and shutting itself off at that.
That's why we're becoming good friends is the goal is to see what this motor can do. I'll do all the wiring and all the other things necessary to support his creation, but we really want to see just how far it can go. And I didn't know initially when we started talking about that this was actually built in the shape of a Chevy big block. So I didn't know that it was capable of fitting into a vehicle other than a boat. For wondering minds, in this video, what we're going to do is disassemble the motor and see just what he made work. But for the quick takeaway is, if you think of my 4-rotor engine, he actually has 3 rows of 4 rotors. And this is each of the individual crankshafts, E-shafts, and they're connected together by gears. But my whole existence is just in a third of this motor. What we're about to tear into is going to be utterly insane, because this shares almost nothing with Mazda engines. Even though it has some similarities, he's completely innovated many things about the way this thing operates. Taking this thing apart, at least looking at it as a whole right now, one of the very first things I always wondered when looking at the pictures was which was an intake, which was an exhaust, because it is side port, and even if it was peripheral port, the same concept exists, that air goes in and out of the same side of a rotary engine. So you can tell already, this is a set of 4 rotors, that's intake and exhaust in that area. This set has intake and exhaust somewhere down there, and the same thing down there. When I first saw the pictures right away, I wasn't sure what's what, but I think it's kind of obvious now. This is the intake manifold.
Another thing we did on this that was different and makes it run so much smoother and look good, we have one bank of rotors that spins backwards. And since it counter-rotates, if it didn't counter-rotate, this exhaust would have to be here, and this intake would have to jump over it. So it wouldn't look symmetrical having the exhaust out here. But to make it look good, we made them spin backwards, and it makes the motor not torque. When you try to rev it, it can't torque because you have a counter rotation. The front and third jump to this side, and the second, fourth jump to this side, so they're even out the back.
I guess that's one question before we start tearing into it is, you have almost any choice in how you fire these rotors.
Yes, yeah, it can be any combination of how you want to run it. You could run it as 2 firing at a time on different sides. On each side, you can run it as just 12 individual firings in 1 crank revolution. You can change it to however you want.
That's something that when we dig into, that he has done that does not exist on our engines. Our engines are fixed timing, rotor to rotor, but his, you can dial a timing. It's really incredible.
So right now, the way it's set up is the front and back rotors are up at the same time, and the center 2 are down at the same time, so they counterbalance each other. You don't need counterweights. There's no counterweights in this motor. Instead of having it loop around as a circle, which tries to actually whip your engine, and you have to have counterweights, I have 2 up and 2 down, so the 2 middle ones down, 2 outside ones up, so you're firing 2 at a time. Now you could do it as 4, and you have twice as many firings, but for counterbalancing, I just did it as 2 up, 2 down.
So what he did is basically made a 4-rotor into a flat plane crank, but rotaries do not fire once every other full rotation. A piston engine has 4 cycles. It requires 720 degrees to do a full thing. Rotaries, every 360 degrees fire. So it's similar to either a 4-cylinder or a flat plane crank like my Cosworth, but rotaries are more efficient in that sense. For harmonics and lack of counterweights, it's a really impressive thing to do. It's time to disassemble the monster.
So those should rock off there and pull the injectors out.
We run 8 IDs, and these are ID 2200s. I have very, very good luck. I shouldn't say luck, very, very good experience with ID injectors. The amount of charging they do, especially with this motor, if you're gonna be idling this motor, you're gonna be using very little fuel per rotor, per injector. And so there's a thing called injector dead time. On my Haltech, you can just fine tune that injector with a half a millisecond of like what characteristics, and we'll be using that a lot.
Just kind of twist and come up through there, and it just kind of rocks off the side.
Oh wow.
Look at all of these ports. It's side ported intake ports, peripheral port exhaust, just like most stock rotaries. Just look at that. This by itself has been a moment of mystery for me for a long time. And these have to do with draining of the oil of the dry sump system. But look how packaged this thing is. Just meant to do this, get the job done. That's fascinating. You have the taper as the way of sealing the exhaust ports.
That's for a Corvette crush washer.
Oh.
So we just made it so it'd use those. They work really good and
looks
easy
good
to get. So this is something I saw in one of your videos that you were talking about as a using a ball bearing.
Yeah.
15 years ago, we put ball bearings on our crank supports. When we do take these out, this back could come off of this. This is all bolted together, but this will actually be able to come off. So we will have to set it on its back.
You want to do that right now then?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and take it off here and set it down. There you go. So if you hold it up that way, there's a pocket for water to go around to get to all the holes.
Oh, wow.
So the water comes in here on both sides and comes into this pocket, and then it can travel around to every hole, and that gives it a little more clearance to clear the bolts. And it goes around to every hole, and then those holes go lengthwise. And that's O-ringed here for the water. One thing you'll have to know when you put this back together, see like this washer is cut to clear because the bolt is so close. So a lot of the washers, you know, like this is a regular size washer, but a lot of them, the washers are had to be cut. So you see it's cut off there just to clear where it had to go.
That makes sense.
These should just pull out. I don't know if there's nuts on any of them.
Just to give you a recap of what's going on at this point is that he pulled the ball bearing supports that go onto the E-shafts. We've got the whole coolant jacket area, and you see all the through bolts, and then all of these different dowel pins. The stock engine has 2. Overbuilt, I think, is a good word at this moment.
Just try to slow it down as it comes down. So the gears aren't on there. This technically would have stayed on here.
That gear means that the center one and the one next to it actually run in the same rotation because they're not directly connected. So that means this one runs opposite because it's connected directly to the main gear.
Those are some decent gears.
It's like a clock tower watch. Like Big Ben can run off of those or something.
So yeah, in theory, your gears would be, you know, there and there, and there's another one for the middle.
And that's yet another way you could clock.
Yeah, that's how you can change the timing between the 3 cranks.
Yeah.
Is by how many teeth. And it takes you a while to figure out which tooth it goes into to line it up with this one. The oil pressure goes all the way down the length of it. So one port goes in here, and that runs oil to all the rotors down each side. And oil comes out here and sprays on the gear face. So it's actually spraying oil right in the middle of the face to catch this. This one has a hole through the middle there, and it actually has an oil port here. So it'll oil that little bearing back there and this bearing, because these are going to go 7,000 or 9,000. This is going to go 25. So we wanted to go ahead and actually force pressure feed these, where these bearings, oil will get behind this gear and run down inside that pocket to get on those. So we knew they would get enough, but this is going to be going so fast, so we wanted to go ahead and pressure the bearings with oil. One of the only things we technically messed up on when we were actually machining, of actually like crashing a machine, let's call it, is we had a Haas machine with a 4th axis in it that will twist. And when I did these porting here, we had this thing bolted to the 4th axis, and it's having to twist and run an end mill down in here. Well, it has to go pretty deep, and the machine was only so big. This corner was going to hit the carousel of your tool changer. Okay. So we took all the tools out of it, took the cover off of it, and this was still going to touch when it was trying to go here. We changed the angle a little bit right there to try to make it clear, but you see this little JB weld here was because the end mill could not come in here and come out. Instead of changing tools while the machine was on and all that stuff, I just let it chew through it. It actually broke the tool and bent over here, is why I went too fast when I went to go back over and twist it to this one.
Oh, I see.
And it caught there, but it wasn't that we messed up, it's just that the machine didn't have the clearance, and I was trying to turn less angle to get this to clear the carousel. But that's the only place that we technically messed up.
So to put his motor into perspective, these are our rear 35 spline axles. These are rated for just shy of 10,000, if not a little bit more, foot-pounds of torque, pound for pound. I think that tells you a lot about the amount of torque. Wow.
We pocketed this all out for a little bit of weight reduction. This lets the oil drop into here, and there's a hole down there you can't really see, but it's a drain. But then just a side wear plate. We had to seal the O-rings for the oil and water, both directions, compression. If you look in here, you see a slot there's a hole that started out over here that connects down here and goes down the bottom of that to here to get the oil down to here. So we only have one oil drain. So that drill hole had to come all the way through there to right there from each side. When you're drilling through here, it has to clear these. So there's a hole through here like that only has about 50 thousandths aside on those holes. So at an angle at that distance, we had to clear about 50 thousandths of being exactly straight.
Oh my God.
And that's done after this is all done, you know, so that's scary.
This is steel.
Yeah.
These are the side plates.
Yeah, they're cast iron actually.
Yeah, cast iron.
Another thing with these is you can change your porting just by changing these plates. You don't have to change this because that hole doesn't matter near as much as this hole.
Yeah, the lip of the hole. Yeah,
so
you're right.
you could bring this in, you could bring this up, wherever you want to change your port timing by just having new plates. You could have 20 different plates with different port timings and it still all has that same outlet.
These are raised a little bit.
Yeah, you can fill this one.
Yeah, but the most important part is that they contact this sleeve. Yeah.
It pinches the sleeve around the rotor to the side wear plate at this point instead of bolting out here. If you hold here tight, it could actually spread this just a little bit. So we made it to where the sleeve, if you feel it's just a little bit sticking up past the aluminum. So in theory, the aluminum right here never actually touches.
Yeah.
It just pulls tight all the way around. So you just torque it down very slowly all the way around. And in theory, you can slide a shim all the way around this thing because it should squish here instead of here.
This is the first moment you see that. Yeah. That is mind-blowing. This is secretly, guys, this is a one-rotor engine.
Yeah.
All this is to support one rotor. His E-shaft is splined. That is probably the greatest fascinating thing. The 12 rotor itself is an engineering marvel, but there's no play in that. It's splined, which means that you can rotate and clock them however you want. And the oiling is done all across this. So the bearing is actually, this is in the center.
The bridges it like this. So that the bearing sits all the way across it. So they're both supported in one bearing.
So you're not supporting one side and there's potential for
the oil pressure goes in here.
Oh, it locks it even more.
Yeah. So the oil pressure goes in here and then spreads between the two.
Wow. There's no play this way. And it was, I actually thought I had two of the wrong pieces because I couldn't even get them myself set up like that.
Or you could put it at whatever degree you want. And you could, you know, change your timing to have them both, you know, the same time. They have to be exactly straight. But then, you know, now you have two of them that are in line with each other.
Yeah.
You know, or you could do them at 180.
There's a standard two rotor.
Yeah, that'd be like a standard two rotor.
32 splines, so you could clock those.
Any degree divided by 4.
I'm reminding myself of one of my favorite quotes at this moment. It's, how do you eat an elephant? And that is, one bite at a time. Remembering the basics, seeing the patterns, taking each step very carefully.
We don't want to get in trouble with Disney, but I don't know what this looks like to you. We were calling that code name Mickey Mouse. Every one of these is basically identical. I think we've numbered them, but just for mainly when I sanded it together, I bolted it together empty to sand it all, to polish it, to make it look right, and then took it all back apart and cleaned it all. But in theory, they're all the same. You could put as many as you want or take them away. You could make this a 6-rotor this long. So it could be a 6-rotor, yeah, right here. You know, it could be a 9-rotor, it could be a 12, a 15, whatever you wanted. But it could be a 3-rotor engine this way instead of long. So you could have a 3-rotor engine that's this long and not have, you know, all that length. It'd be wider, but it would only be that long.
That would be a 3-rotor.
It would actually, you tend to take
you're right. You don't even need the side ports.
Yeah. I've got all the rotors and everything over there.
Okay.
So all the rotors and shafts and everything are on all these tubs. That was one, you know, section. That was another section. They're all kind of separated by section. So these are all the side plates for that section. Those were the rotors. You know, there's the other rotors. Each of these tubs is for another section. This is the vent, and it has a filter for the air, so you're not getting dirt in there, but there's a hole that goes through here that lets that suck air into this chamber to get the oil to go down to the bottom to go down.
Excellent. I like that you used the Mazda's.
Yeah, just factory.
Yeah, keep that.
There was a company that made a bunch of generators, and they made lots of them. And they were going to scrap them even though they'd never been ran, and they took them all apart, and some guys were taking them apart and selling them, and I bought like 100 of these. Had to change the hole pattern because we had drilled this, but then we had actually drilled it backwards from the dowel. location.
Okay.
So we had to drill them backwards of the dowel location because the rotor won't spin. That gear has to be lined up right. See, people that haven't made custom ones, they don't know.
Yeah.
But that gear has to be exactly at the right place. That's why it has a pin. But we had put the pin on the wrong side, so then we had to re-drill the whole bolt pattern into it.
Gotcha. So the coolant comes in through one side and it's just
and it comes out here.
Exits the other side. Yeah.
At the top. That way it gets the air out.
Nice.
So it all goes in there and it comes out these three. And I saw in one of your videos you talked about the temperature doesn't change. It doesn't. It stays the same.
People were telling me so much bullshit about
Yeah.
that. And I had 2 to 4 degree. If I pushed the engine really hard, maybe 5 degrees Fahrenheit.
But it ain't 50 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
We were talking about putting in the middle and coming out both ends. And we looked at doing all that stuff. But in the end, it goes in the front, comes out the back, and it doesn't change.
Yeah.
It's hard to glue silicone to silicone because silicone's silicone. It doesn't glue.
Yeah.
There is a company that makes a glue that will glue silicone. I made all these O-rings.
Oh,
so I glued them all myself. Just cord, just like those rolls of cord over there.
Yeah.
And then there's a special glue you can get that will glue it together. You'll be able to feel the glue seam. That's right there. It's a high temp silicone O-ring that was just a roll of cord and it does not come apart.
In your opinion, what does the core of the motor need at this point?
I would say just put back together. You know, when we were leaning it out on the dyno and messing with it and warped the tip seals and stuff and lost compression, you could take the tip seals and put them on something flat and see light underneath them, so they were definitely warped.
Yeah.
There was 1 or 2 that the side seal got stuck in, but other than that, we just ran. So it really just needs basically new tip seals put in it. I would clearance the rotors and do all the stuff that you're learning you need to do.
Yeah.
I would do it all anyways. The only thing I would probably do, and I did it on the bigger diesel one, is where the oil goes into the drain to suck it out. I took a grinder and ground in there and made that a little bit more of a bevel and stuff down into the hole so the oil can drain in easier, let's say.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't think I would really change much to it.
So this video series is not going to be like the 4-rotor video series. 4-rotor video series represents everything I'm learning at that moment. It's not so much what the car is, it's what it stands for. Where this is a project that we want to get running and apply the knowledge that we've learned and show more knowledge we've learned, but get right to action. So this thing's going to be assembled very quickly in this video series. If not next video or this following video, I start making, as I work on those manifolds and make something absolutely beautiful. Wearing the shirt, it just definitely got me on the thoughts of how did it pump this much oil, because a 4-rotor consumes a lot of oil, and by consume I mean uses to lubricate the motor. So I just asked him what oil. Okay.
Yeah, that's an oil pump.
Yeah, and that's an oil filter?
Yep. But yeah, it's a 5-suction, very wide pressure section, and it has a drive on the back for a mechanical fuel pump.
Question answered.
The gears don't look worn at all either.
No, they look great.
Look how big my back crank is. You know, it doesn't get any smaller. You know, once it goes through, it's not this small.
Yeah.
So you only have 3 of these splines driving.
Yeah.
And once you get to this one, then it's this much bigger. When you're driving, you only are holding 3 rotors, not 4, on this spline. And then that's that big. So that ain't going anywhere.
No.
This we know can handle thousands of horsepower anyways, because the power glide input is smaller than that. So that's not gonna break. Try to put that in one of those gears. I mean, you've seen a picture of it, but go try it. You'll see a tight fit.
I think I got a little lucky, but even then.
Yeah, it's tight.
I mean this respectfully, this thing's so overbuilt. You know that you could get away with a smaller spline, but
why would you?
Yeah, you don't need to be questioning that. While we were going through the 12-rotor insanity, we got a couple packages in today, and if my mind already couldn't be blown,
What?
jump starter and tire inflator built into one.
Wow, we needed a tire inflator.
Yeah. So 16, let's see how quick it goes to 20. That's impressive. For an emergency backup system.
Now we don't have to pull the truck up.
So you can actually reinflate a tire easily with this thing. This thing should not be going this fast.
That's pretty
That's
brave.
what I was wondering. You see how wide it is? I was like,
Oh God.
yeah. Joel really wants to see these unboxed, and I told him, okay, the rule is that we have to go grab what they're replacing, and he refuses to do it. And that just proves the point of why they need to be replaced. I saw an ad on Facebook for race ramps, and a lot of you guys are gonna be shaking your head like this has been long overdue. We've been telling you guys to get them, but race ramps reached out and said, you guys need to get the race ramps. And so
It was like right after we were looking at buying.
I can't believe how much weight they can hold. Look at that angle.
Oh, whoa. That's the angle we need.
We can keep the splitter on the 4-rotor. And this actually...
So it flips it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So they kind of slightly interlock.
Jeez, I need to go from over here.
Look at that. Look at how much higher this raises it. Our wood only comes to like right here.
Awesome.
Yeah, race ramps. I'm sure raceramps.com. Race ramps for real. Race ramps for life. Very happy. Very, very happy. As I've collected my thoughts and realized what we've got ourselves into, you don't realize that actually physically means 12 rotors, or scary enough, 36 apex seals for all you guys that love those memes. We will now have to go through and clearance check every single rotor, get the weights. We're gonna go through everything pretty thoroughly, because once you get this engine together, you're not gonna wanna take it apart, much less pack all 12 of these rotors. This is probably a week of work of just getting these things all dialed in, but that is a week I am very excited for. This is the beginning of what it's like digging into this 12 rotor. We're gonna keep these episodes very clear and solid, so this next episode that's coming up might take us a little bit, but it's gonna be all the way up to getting this thing ready to fire.